Okay, now, so we already configured the security policy between two zones. Okay, now next step is what? We are going to create one NAT policy, or we can call as PAT policy, to hiding the internal IP address, to hide the internal IP addresses. So let me just explain this thing here. This is our diagram, right? So in this diagram, now this diagram now. So we already create a policy between these two zones, inside and outside, right? These two zones. Okay, now here we want to create one NAT policy. We want to create one NAT policy, network address translation policy, to hide this IP address, this subnet mask, to hide this subnet mask to our outer network, to hide the subnet mask to our outer network. Okay, so in our first session of the firewall, introduction to firewall, we have seen the two things, that is hide net and static net, right?
Static net. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this internal network, okay, we are putting this policy between internal network to inside zone to outside zone. So in this inside zone, we are using this hide network, hide net. So in the hide net, what is that? One IP address,
One too many.
one to many, many. My handwriting is too bad. I need to improve this. Okay. Okay, one to many. So here we can see here, this is the one IP address. This one slash the IP address which we assign to this interface 1/1. That is the one IP address, and that this IP address we can assume that this IP address that is globally reachable, right? The public IP address. We assume that this is not the public IP address. This is also one kind of private IP address, but we assume here the IP address which we assign to 1/1 interface, that is globally reachable IP address, and that is public IP address. So this is one public IP address, and suppose right now we have only one user, and that is Bob. Here is the one user, that is Bob. But you have more than one user, like here one more, here one more. Okay, so here you have three users here, A, B, and C. Okay, so here we have three users, means we have three IP addresses associated with each and every IP addresses, right? So we want that we enable the netting here, to enable the net here, okay, to hide all these interfaces, between behind this interface, behind this IP address of your outside interface. Okay, so in this our network, in this diagram, our existing diagram, we already have one netting. If you can see here, we already have a netting. This is our 10.1.1 network from class A, and here we assign the class C network, and other we have the router. So this router also has the option called net. Okay, so that is also doing the netting. Is also doing the netting, right, with the outside network, right? So here we are using creating a policy for port address translation. We are creating a policy for port and address translation in our Palo Alto device. Okay, so how to create this? Let's just do it. Okay, so first of all, what you need to do first of all, let me minimize all this thing. No, no, this is a Palo Alto device, right? So you can see here that the policy and the security. This is say we already created this policy. Okay, so inside the address from this outside destination to the outside zone, and we apply that we allow the three applications, DNS, SS, and everything, and we allow this. Okay, now we want to create one policy, NAT policy. Okay, so under the policy, okay, you need to go to the click on NAT, network address translation. Okay, so under the network address translation, you can see there are no NAT policy right now. Okay, so here we need to create one. Here we need to create one policy here to NAT, for NAT. So click on add here. Okay, so here we need to assign one name to this policy. Okay, so we can assign this as a pet policy for in to out. Pet policy for in to out. Okay, then here we need to click on next, that is original packet. So our original packet is from which zone? We need to allow here, we need to create one NAT policy to allowing the internet access to Bob user. So the source zone, which zone we need to select here?
Inside.
Right, inside. Okay, then the destination, what I need to select here?
Outside.
Outside. Right. Then the interface, destination interface. What is the interface for outside zone?
1-1.
Right, 1/1. Right, and we assign the any services. We already assigned the applications in our policy. So here we choose any here. Okay, now the source address. So if we have the one subnet, that is 1.10.1.1. So the subnet we are going to select here. Subnet we are going to select here. Okay, let's just wait here. Now this one inside we already created this object, so select that. Okay, and destination we choose here any. Okay, now what we have done, let me just explain this thing, that the packet got translated if the packet from inside source would be inside zone, source would be inside zone, destination outside, and the destination interface 1/1. Okay, and the source address, if the source address is 10.1.1.0 network, then the packet got translated. The packet got translated, so here we need to define the translated packet information. So click here, translated packet, and here the translation type. So here we need to select here the dynamic IP and port, the dynamic IP and a port translation method. So here we are doing the dynamic IP and port translation, means NAT and PAT together, NAT and PAT together, dynamic IP and port also. That address type, translation address type. So here we need to choose your interface address. We already have an interface, outside interface. Okay, so here we are going to choose interface address, and the interface here we are going to choose which interface, which. Okay, so here guys, the interface which interface you have to select. So on which interface you want to translate that packet. Suppose the original packet came to the source would be the inside zone and the destination would be outside zone. So that packet got translated to the Ethernet 1/1 interface and the IP address 1.47. Okay, so here let me just explain this thing again. If the original packet came from inside zone, source inside, destination outside, network destination interface 1/1, the source would be 10.1.1.0 subnet. Then this packet got translated to the interface called Ethernet 1/1 and the IP address 192.168.1.47. If you want to translate this packet to particular IP address, so you can select your translated address. Understood this? Hello.
Yes, Anish.
Good. Now click OK here.
So Anish, can you give an example where we use translated address instead of interface address? Like
Okay, so we use this now interface address. We already assigned one IP address to our interface 1/1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so over there we already have one IP address associated with this address. So that's why we use here this what we call transfer interface address. For suppose if you have more than one free IP address in your network, if you have more than one public IP address available in your network, so you can use also the public IP address to translate that particular packet to that particular IP address, public IP address.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Now here you can see here we create a policy. So this is our policy. Just configure this thing. Just check this policy. Source inside, destination outside, then destination interface 1/1, the source address 10.1.1.0 subnet, destination address any, service any, and the IP route, the source translation, that is dynamic IP port interface 1/1, and this IP address. So we create this NAT policy. Now we want to implement this. So how we going to implement?
Click on commit.
Yes, we need to click on commit.
Yeah.
Manish, I did not understand the translate address part. Could you please repeat that?
Which one?
The translate address in the address type for the translated packet.
Let me just explain you this thing. Here. Okay, now this is my firewall, right? Okay, now I have one IP address to this firewall here. This is my internal network, and I have the IP address for internal IP, that is 10.1.1.0. Okay, and the subnet address 24. Okay, so this is my inside network, internal network. Okay, now I have one more outside network here that is connected to the ISP, and here I assign the IP address, that is 192.168.1.47, and the subnet 24. Okay, but I don't want that the whatever packet that is sourced from here. Suppose there is one user here in my internal network, right? So this user A, okay, user A in the subnet mask of this 10.1.1.6 is using the IP address from this subnet. Okay, I don't want the packet go translated to this IP address. In the translation method, we have two options. One is interface, right? And second one is what?
Translate address.
Second one option, guys.
Translate address. Translated address.
Translated address. Okay. So when to use this one and when to use this one? Suppose if you want to translate whatever packet will go on to this outside network. Suppose this user A wants to access the internet services. Okay, so packet will move to the inside zone to outside zone, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You want that the whatever packet came from this subnet. Okay, it has to move to this address. They use this IP address, which is associated with this interface 1/1. Okay, so if you want this IP address to be translated over there, so at that time you have to select the interface address. Okay, but if you don't want that this address to be translated, so you can add here translated address, and over here under the translation address you need to assign another free IP address of your same public network. You can say 148. So whatever packet came from this subnet, it will translate the IP address which you mentioned here, and this IP address will communicate with your ISP, not this one.
Anish, could you tell me like where it can be used?
Now that is depend upon your requirement, guys. Most of the thing we use the interface address most of the time. Okay, but if you want that no one can get to know my outside zone IP address, so at that time you can use the translated address.
Okay.
Right. Okay, and that is called what? Dynamic net means height net. So we use the height net in inside to outside zone. Okay, so we use the static net in outside to DMZ, so that we are going to see, okay, in our data session. Now understood this? Should we?
Yes, Anish.
Yeah,
Yes,
yes.
Anish.
Good. Okay, now let's just do. Okay, now that is committed. Fine. Okay, now so we have created a policy here to allow access of the internet services, a DNS, SSL, web browsing to our user called Bob, and we also create a policy for the NAT. Okay, now we need to check the whatever policy we created into the Palo Alto device, whether it is working well or not. Okay, so thanks to our VMware workstation, we have one option to create a one user, one this machine. We can create a one this machine into our VMnet1. Okay, let me just clarify something here. Now, okay, now this is my inside zone network address, right? Okay, and we already created this one into a VMware workstation with the Palo Alto device, and this here we use here VMnet1, right? Right, guys?
Yes, Anish.
This is connected to VMnet1, right? So here what we are going to do, we are going to put creating one more virtual machine into our VMware workstation. Okay, whether it is any of the operating system, whether it's Windows 10, Windows 7, any Ubuntu, any, you can put any machine. You need to install one virtual machine in your VMware workstation. Okay, and you need to connect this virtual machine to the VMnet1 adapter, and to check whether the whatever policy we create into the Palo device, whether that is working well or not. Okay, so let's just check these things. Okay, so
that is where Windows 7 virtual machine comes in, right?
yes, that is where we already created Windows 7, right? This one. This is my Palo Alto. This one. Okay, now you can see here I create one folder here, and into this folder Palo Alto I have Palo Alto and Windows 7. So this I already have the Windows 7. So let's just resume this. Okay, before resuming, just let this. Okay, you have to make some kind of changes. Now, how many of you created this virtual machine? Windows 7. Hello.
I did it.
Good. Okay, so
Yeah,
before power on this, go to the settings of this virtual machine of Windows 7, and under the network adapter, you select the host only, right? So here you need to select here. You need to shut down this first.
VMnet 1.
Yeah, first to make the changes of the network adapter, you need to shut down. So you can also do this thing. Go to the shutdown. Go to settings of the Windows 7 here. Then go to network adapter, and here we need to select VMnet 1. VMnet 1. Okay. Then go to options here. Why it says this? Then go to options, and if you anyone knows how to enable this, but how to take a virtual remote desktop virtual machine.
Sorry, what
How to
Anish?
take a remote desktop of virtual machine. Like in the physical machine, you can use remote desktop, right? Microsoft RDP service to take a remote desktop. Okay, so you also take a remote desktop of the virtual machine, okay, using the VNC connection. So under the option, just enable this VNC connection, and this will allow to take this Windows 7 virtual machine to take a remote. Take the remote desktop. Okay, now, so this is done. You can check notify here. Okay, now maximize this. Now here we need to assign one IP address to this virtual machine, to Windows 7. So go to network, go to properties, go to IP version 4. Here we need to assign one manual IP address. So we need to assign here the VMNet 1. So what is the subnet for VMNet 1?
24.
Subnet 24, and the network address
10.1.1.0.
right. So here we need to assign the IP address from the same network address, that is 10.1.1. Let's say we can assign here 25. The subnet mask 24.255.255.0, and the default gateway. So under default gateway, which IP address we need to assign? Any idea?
The same one, 192.168.0.1.
No.
That 192.168.1.1.
No. What is the IP address for the 1/2?
10.1.1.0.
This is the network address, IP address.
Okay.
250.
250.
Right? 250. The default gateway should be this, the IP address of your 1/2 interface. IP address of your 1/2 interface. Because this system, this Windows 7, that is connected to a internal network, right? Inside Zoom, not to directly outside Zoom. Here we need to assign the default gateway, that is the IP address of your 1/2 interface, 250, and the DNS servers, which you assign to your firewall to device. Click OK. Okay. Close this. Okay. Now close this one also. Now check your internet, whether you have the internet access or not. So you can see we have the internet access now in our Windows 7, in our virtual machine, where workstation. Okay. Now I'm clicking any kind of SSL website. We can say paypal.com. So we allow the internet access to the Bob user now. And you can also check this thing in the command prompt also. Go to save area Windows and ping your any of your, suppose that this ping google.com, www.google.com. Okay, it's not pinging. Why? Any idea? Why we are not able to, yeah, why we are not able to ping google.com?
Policy is not correct because it's not allowing Google.
But we can see that it can resolve the DNS. We can find the IP address of your Google. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But why we are not able to ping? Because we allow only 3 services: SSL, web browsing, and DNS. That's it. We haven't allowed the ping. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Right? When we create the rule policy, so we haven't created this one. So you can check this thing by trace rule. Just type the command. Not this, minus lookup. Yes. Now you can see here. This is my server, the DNS server IP address. Right? So you can see that this system is able to communicate with my DNS server. Okay, now let's just okay. Tell me any other SSL website. Which website uses SSL interface?
Any bank websites?
American Bank. Now you can see we have the SSL access also. You can see here HTTPS. So understood this, everyone?
Yes, Anish.
Okay, so we create the policies into our followed device. This one. So all this working fine. Just all these policies. Whatever configuration we have done into followed device, all this working fine, and we can check here. Okay. So you need to complete up to this part. Yes. So we are going to use GNS3 to check whether all these things are working fine or not. Okay. So here let's just take out one cloud. Okay. Now go right click on this cloud, click on configure. Then this cloud is connected to VM network adapter 1. So you are selected, click on add, click apply. Okay. Okay. Now put out one Ethernet switch and one virtual PC. This one. Okay. Now connect all these things that take one connector, connect this PC to the switch and this switch to the cloud. Okay. Now click on play. So this is fine. Now here we need to assign an IP address to the system PC1. Here we need to assign an IP address to PC1. So right click on this PC, go to console. So this will open up the console. Where is the console? This is the console here. Okay, so here we need to assign the IP address here. So type here IP, then 10.1.1.25 we already assigned, so 26 space. We need to assign the gateway. So what is the gateway? First subnet mask, so /24, then gateway. So that is 10.1.1.250 and press enter key. So this will check for duplicate addresses. So it will assign the IP address. Now here we need to assign the DNS. So IP space DNS, that is assign the DNS service. So we assign this thing, DNS server. Okay, now let's just ping www.google.com. Are we able to get any kind of ping reply? Hello.
Says timeout.
It's timeout. Why? We are able to resolve the Google, right? It is the IP address of the google.com. The DNS service is connected, but we are not. Why we are not able to ping?
The firewall's not allowing it?
Yes, because we haven't allowed the pinging service between the inside zone to outside zone. Okay, so to do this thing, we need to first allow this into a firewall. So go to access the firewall, go to policy, go to security, and click on edit of this policy, and go to applications, and here add here the ping. Then save, okay, and commit. Close this thing. Click on task. You can check here the status. So this is done. Now just check. So let's just ping. Now we can see. Can you see, guys? We are able to ping now google.com.
Yes.
So this is working. So instead of creating a virtual machine into a VMware workstation, you can use DNS3 also to check all these things. Okay, so this is the one way you can integrate with your Palo Alto, this one with your DNS3.